I'm your host, Donna Cates, and each week we'll dive into powerful stories, expert strategies, and practical tools to help you take charge of your financial future. Whether you're planning for retirement, navigating a divorce, or simply looking to build your wealth with confidence, this is your space to grow, learn, and thrive. Let's get started with today's podcast. Welcome, everybody. Donna Cates here, and I have the honor today to introduce you to Rena Vanzo. And I'm going to let her share with you the name of her business because when I saw it, of course, I giggled, and I'm hoping that you do the same. But Rena, without any further ado, what I'd love to do is have you actually tell me, maybe in about 90 seconds, an overview of what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, Donna. So I drive a 40-foot bus that is called the boob bus, quite literally. And what that is, a mammogram machine and a breast ultrasound on wheels. So we are bringing mammograms or breast cancer screenings to women where they are in the community, making it really convenient. And breast cancer is something that really impacts all of us, every family, directly or indirectly, every community. 1 in every 8 women will experience breast cancer in her lifetime. And mammograms are the best way to detect cancer early when it's most treatable. So this has just become a passion of mine. Over the past couple of years, I had my first mammogram when I turned 40. That's typical now. A lot of the medical organizations say start when you're 40 every year. And, it was a fine experience, but I left with more questions than answers. Realized that I have a very strong family history of breast cancer. I was in the genetics field previously and started reaching out to family members and learned that this ran in my family. So I thought, what a great business opportunity to combine these things and bring it to women in the community.
Well, and I think I love your ingenuity. And I will tell you that I literally just got the reminder that I have my next mammogram next week. So now knowing what I know about your business and what makes it so unique to that typical hospital environment, let's go get in the gown after we've driven for 45 minutes to get there and navigated the parking and all the things. So kind of explain to us, what that boob bus brings to folks.
Yeah, that you just perfectly articulated a lot of the barriers and a lot of the challenges that women face, and maybe if they're not real, they're perceived. This idea, I've got to take off work, I've got to find my way there are all these staircases and elevators and check-in desks, and we build the experience up in our minds. And I'm sure you weren't thrilled when you got that reminder card. So part of our goal is to really change the narrative about the way women think about their mammograms. Let's make it convenient. Let's have it in the parking lot of your grocery shopping center. Let's have it at your gym, at your local health department, where you can literally park right next to it, walk on and walk out within 20 minutes. So making it as convenient as possible. So there are those logistical details that I think we are maybe better at, and we're breaking down those barriers compared to the hospital, but also the psychological experience and kind of the emotional experience. This isn't walking into that hospital where maybe a lot of us hold a lot of fear and bad memories. This is a group of women supporting women, and let's be a safe place to ask questions and talk about your breast health. We don't want this to be just a sterile, quick interaction where you don't really understand and what is it we're looking for and what is the report going to say. We want to make it something that you understand. How does your risk compare to that average risk of 1 in 8? Is your personal risk, Donna, higher or lower than that? And why? What are the components driving that risk? And so when people understand it's more easy for those emotions to come down and for us to be more receptive of that experience.
And it sounds like you are literally turning something that is typically seen as threatening and scary, just downright uncomfortable, into almost like a spa opportunity. And that, that literally just resonates with me so much because of all of the fear and just the technical and clinical environment that we typically do those things. Well, this is definitely a unique way to help people. And I understand that you're doing this in your community. Tell me where the service is available now.
Yeah, so I'm a resident of South Jordan, Utah. So that's an area just south of Salt Lake City. And when we came up with this business idea, myself and I have one business partner, and when we came up with the idea, Utah was ranked 48th out of 50 states for women getting their mammograms. So we knew that this would be a great place to kind of prove this business concept and to see what kind of an impact we could make and see if we could improve those statistics. So right now we are zoned for serving women in the state of Utah. We can go as all the way around the state. We do travel to rural areas. That's another barrier for us too. Many women, even those of us who live in the city limits, still have to drive to the big medical center. But imagine you had to drive 2 or 3 hours before even getting to the city. So we want to go out into those rural communities and help as much as we can. So right now we're in Utah, but it would be a dream one day for there to be a boob bus in more cities and in more states.
Well, Rena, that was going to be my next question. Where do you see this business going in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you have aspirations to maybe franchise or move across the U.S.?
Yeah, those are absolutely some things that we're thinking about right now and evaluating, what are the communities that are most in need, and kind of going from there and seeing how things unfold. There's a lot to think about in terms of serving women with such a regulated examination. Mammography is very regulated. We had to get national credentials. We have to get state credentials. Of course, our radiologists have to have a medical license in the state. Our mammogram technicians have to have a medical license. So we have to think about all of those things, but also, what is the best technology? These mammograms, the process itself hasn't changed much in decades, but there are improvements to the technology. Which instruments are the best? How can we deliver the lowest dose of radiation while still getting the best quality images? We've added a dense breast ultrasound into our bus. We're the only bus in the nation with a dense breast ultrasound that kind of adds an additional level of screening for women with dense breasts. So I'm trying to think about those components and just really modernizing the whole process. I'm a genetic counselor by training. And so I've also included saliva genetic tests on board for women who want that service to test for the BRCA genes, BRCA1 and BRCA2, as you may have heard about. But there are also 30, 40 other genes known to, when they have a genetic change, known to increase a woman's chances for breast cancer and other forms of cancer. So how can we layer that in a non-threatening way that's going to be helpful for not only this woman in front of me, but also her children, her sisters, her nieces and nephews. Men get breast cancer too, especially if there's a genetic variant in a family. So we're trying to kind of stay on the cutting edge of all of those elements.
And that sounds like a big task in and of itself, just being all of the compliance and the regulation in place. So tell me what is the biggest challenge that you've actually encountered, and maybe not just with this business, but from throughout life, that what's really challenged you and gotten you where you are today?
It's such a good question. And I've been in the mindset over the past several years where I'm really trying to turn everything into a positive. So it's, it's hard to pinpoint, but I really would consider the year 2022, 2 years ago, almost a midlife crisis in many ways for me. By all accounts, I had it all. I was the vice president of clinical services at a genetic testing laboratory. I had been there for over a decade. I was the 11th employee there and watched the company grow. So it was a great job. I was married, had two beautiful children. That was all fine and good, right? But when you look at it from the inside out, my marriage was failing. There were struggles there. My company had just been acquired by a larger biotech company. So there were cultural and personnel changes. So there was a lot that was rocky. I felt like I was really on this unsteady ground all of a sudden. And that's about the time when I turned 40, had that first mammogram. I was in a business school program that I really cherished, and that was coming to a close. And so it was really kind of a perfect storm for me, a lot of big changes at once. And, that just formed kind of the launch pad for, okay, I'm going to make these changes. I'm going to get a divorce. That's what's best for me. That's what's best for my family. I'm going to leave this corporate environment. That's what's best for me right now. And I'm going to choose to put my energy and my efforts and my passion into something that I know will make a difference for decades to come. So I really had to kind of flip that mindset. So I think just from a macro standpoint, that was probably the biggest challenge. But certainly as an entrepreneur, I faced so many, very specific elements with, obtaining a custom 40-foot bus and trying to get the funding for that bus before I had the regulations to back it up. So there was a lot of finessing and trying to negotiate with many different vendors and partners to really make this business a reality. And it's just a wonder that it's here and the bus is here now.
And you've made all of that happen. And that's the thing, as an entrepreneur myself, I can totally relate to all of the different hats that you're wearing and just juggling those and managing from a day-to-day, perspective, just keeping your head afloat, right? And I don't know, you may not know this about me, but my area of expertise in the financial world is working with women in transition. So I help a lot of women make those tough choices when it comes to divorcing and how they're going to manage post-divorce. So thank you for sharing that with us, that you actually made that transition and you've come out on the other side stronger. That's a special place to be as well. So kudos to you again. I've got one more question that I want to ask you, and this is kind of out there, but if you could have lunch with one person, living or dead, who would that be?
Grandma Doris, easy. That's an easy one for me. So and maybe it's just the conversation that we're having right now. But my mother's mother, Doris Jean, such a vibrant soul, and is actually the inspiration for this business. She was a breast cancer survivor. She beat breast cancer. She died many years later to COVID, but she was such a role model for me, and just she lit up a room anytime she walked into a room. And she had to navigate so many challenges in her personal life. She buried a son who died when he was a teenager. She buried her husband when she was in the prime of her life. We watched her go downhill with medical issues as she became older, but she was always so positive, had so many wonderful stories to share. I remember sitting next to her. We would play blackjack. She always had just the best, most manicured nails. And I loved the way she would scratch the blackjack table, telling the dealer to hit her. It was like, bring it on. I've got this. And I'd ask her so many more questions now about her experience with breast cancer and how can I use that and translate that into how I'm trying to help women now, and how can we talk about this more and have women in their 20s and 30s growing up knowing what that experience is like and not being afraid of that mammogram and calling it the boob bus. Let's make it a household term and let's not shy away from this.
I love that. So I'm here to help you shout from the rooftops, boob bus, boob bus. I love it, love it. So, and I will share with you too. My mom died from cancer as well. And well, not that your grandmother did, but my mom did die from cancer, and I know that your grandmother is watching from above and just enjoying everything that you're doing and making a difference in the world. So excited to know you today. So if people wanted to reach out to you to learn more about your business and what opportunities there might be, how's the best way for them to reach you?
So our website is pretty memorable, theboobbus.com. And then we link to social media sites. We're on Instagram, the Boob Bus One. If you can believe it or not, there are other boob buses on Instagram, but we are the Boob Bus One. Also on Facebook, the Boob Bus, and love to engage with people just talking about breast health and some of the issues out there, answering questions. So we'd love to hear from you.
I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to take the next step in your financial journey. Remember, building wealth isn't just about money, it's also about creating a life that aligns with your goals and values. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with the women in your life who deserve financial empowerment too. Until next time, stay confident, stay empowered, and keep building the life you desire.